The darkness of space shimmered as 300 warships tore through reality itself. The Kralveth Empire had arrived at the edge of the Sol system, their massive fleet blocking out the stars. Inside the command ship, Admiral Tekmor stood tall, his 4 arms crossed behind his back as he studied the primitive planet on the main display. "This will be quick," he said to his officers. "Another simple conquest for the Empire." The blue and green world called Earth rotated slowly on the screen. The Kralveth had been watching this system for cycles, studying the weak species that lived there. Humans, they called themselves. They still used chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. Their technology was at least 200 years behind the Empire's weakest colony. Colonel Vekthar stood beside the Admiral, but he did not share the same confidence. He had studied the reports carefully, reading through hundreds of files about human history. Something about these creatures made his skin crawl with unease. "Admiral," Vekthar said quietly, "I recommend we observe them longer before engaging." Tekmor laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Observe? We have 300 ships, Colonel. They have metal tubes that float in orbit. This is not a battle. This is a collection." The fleet moved deeper into the system, passing the outer planets with ease. Their sensors swept through every corner of space, cataloging human installations. A few bases on Mars, some mining operations in the asteroid belt, primitive satellites around Earth, nothing that could stop even a single Kralveth destroyer. On Mars Defense Station, Captain Hyun sat at his monitoring station when the alarms suddenly screamed to life. His coffee cup shook on the desk as every screen turned red with warnings. He leaned forward, his hands flying across the controls. "No, no, no," he whispered, his eyes widening as the sensor data flooded his displays. 300 contacts, all massive, all moving with purpose toward Earth. Hyun activated the emergency channel to Earth Command. "This is Mars Defense Station to Earth Command. We have multiple hostile contacts entering the system. I repeat, 300 unknown vessels approaching from Vector 779er. This is not a drill." The voice on the other end stayed calm, but Hyun could hear the tension underneath. "Confirmed, Captain. We're tracking them. Go to combat alert status." "Prepare all defensive systems." Hyun switched channels to his crew. "All personnel, battle stations, charge all weapon systems. Launch the remote drones. If they come through here, we make them bleed for every meter." Back on the Kralveth command ship, Admiral Tekmor prepared his message to the humans. The translation computers had studied their languages, learning their primitive communication methods. He dictated the message with the boredom of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. "Humans of Earth, I am Admiral Tekmor of the Kralveth Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 48 hours to surrender all military forces and submit to Imperial authority. Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities and the enslavement of your population. Choose wisely." The message broadcast across every human frequency, in every human language. On Earth, billions of people watched as the message played on their screens. Some panicked, some prayed, some cried, but many simply got angry. In the command center, deep beneath the Korean peninsula, General Kwon stood before a wall of screens showing the alien fleet. His face remained expressionless as his staff rushed around him, coordinating the global defense. "Status report," he said calmly. "All defense forces at full readiness, sir," an officer replied. "Nuclear arsenals unlocked. All submarines at combat depth. Air forces launching from every base. The orbital platforms are charging their weapons." "And our special projects?" "The Prometheus team reports they can be operational in 36 hours if needed." "Sir." Kwon nodded slowly. He picked up the secure phone that connected directly to the other military leaders around the world. "This is General Kwon. The aliens have given us 48 hours to surrender. I propose we give them 48 hours to regret coming here. All in favor? The responses came quickly, one after another. Every nation, every military force, spoke as one voice. Not one suggested surrender. Colonel Vekthar reviewed the intelligence reports in his private quarters. He had requested every file the Empire had on human history. What he read made his blood run cold. These humans had fought each other constantly, wars that killed millions, weapons that poisoned entire regions. They had split the atom and used it to destroy their own cities. They had created diseases as weapons. They had burned their own forests and salted their own earth just to deny resources to their enemies. The most disturbing fact sat at the bottom of one report, highlighted by the Empire's analysts, but apparently ignored by the command staff. In their entire recorded history, humans had never once completely surrendered as a species. Individual groups, yes, but never their whole civilization. They simply did not know how to quit. Vekthar tried again to speak with Admiral Tekmor. Sir, I must insist you review these reports. The humans are more dangerous than we estimated. Tekmor waved him away. You worry too much, Colonel. They are primitives. In 48 hours, they will kneel before the Empire like all the others. But Vekthar noticed something that made his scales stand on end. The humans had not responded to the Admiral's message. No panicked transmissions, no pleas for mercy, no offers to negotiate. Just silence. Then, at the 47-hour mark, a response finally came. It broadcast from Earth on every frequency, strong enough that every ship in the Kralveth fleet received it clearly. The voice belonged to General Quan, speaking in clear, simple words. To the Kralveth Empire. You have made a mistake coming to our home. You have threatened our families. You have threatened our world. We have one response to give you. Come and try to take it. The transmission ended. Admiral Tekmor laughed again, but this time a few of his officers did not join him. In the silence that followed, they could all feel it. Something had changed. The prey had shown its teeth. Colonel Vekthar returned to his quarters and began writing a personal log. He recorded everything he had learned about humans, every warning sign he had seen. If the Empire survived this, someone needed to know the truth. He ended his log entry with a simple statement that would prove prophetic. We are not hunting sheep. We have awakened something that should have been left alone. The first shots came from Earth orbit. The Kralveth fleet moved into position around the planet, their weapons charging to bombard military installations. Admiral Tekmor gave the order with a casual wave of his hand, expecting the humans to break and surrender once they saw the power of the Empire. The orbital defense platforms fired first. Beams of concentrated energy and railgun projectiles tore through space. 3 Kralveth destroyers exploded before they could raise their shields. The surprise attack cost them 8 more ships in the first 5 minutes. Impossible! Tekmor shouted, gripping his command chair. They shouldn't have weapons that powerful. Our intelligence said... Our intelligence was wrong, sir. Colonel Vekthar said quietly. He watched the tactical display as human weapons revealed themselves across the system. Hidden platforms in the asteroid belt, weapons buried on Mars and Earth's moon, satellites that suddenly showed their true purpose. In the Pacific Ocean, Commander Doyen received his orders through the submarine's secure channel. His crew had been waiting at combat depth for 2 days, conserving power and staying silent. Now it was time to show the aliens what human submarines could do. Target coordinates locked, his weapons officer reported. We have firing solutions on all underwater Kralveth mining operations. Doyen took a deep breath. He had never launched nuclear weapons before. No one had, not in real combat, not for over a century. But these aliens had come to enslave his world, and he would not let that happen. Fire all tubes! Launch everything! The submarine shuddered as missile after missile erupted from its launch tubes. They streaked through the water and broke the surface, their engines igniting as they climbed into the sky. Across the world's oceans, 50 more submarines did the same thing. Hundreds of nuclear-tipped missiles rose like a swarm of angry wasps. The Kralveth had established underwater bases to harvest Earth's minerals. They thought the oceans would protect them from the primitives above. They were wrong. The nuclear warheads detonated deep underwater, creating massive pressure waves that crushed the alien installations like tin cans. Thousands of Kralveth died in seconds. Above South Korea, Major Isul led her fighter squadron toward the alien ships descending through the atmosphere. Her aircraft was loaded with modified antimatter warheads, enough to vaporize a city block. She knew this would be a one-way trip. "Dragon Squadron, this is Dragon Lead," she said over the radio, her voice steady. "Remember your families. Remember why we fight. It has been an honor flying with you." Her squadron responded as one. "For Earth. For humanity." They accelerated to maximum speed, pushing their aircraft beyond safety limits. The Kralveth point defense systems opened fire, destroying half the squadron before they could close the distance. But the rest pushed through, piloting their fighters directly into the alien landing ships. The antimatter warheads detonated on contact. Massive explosions tore through the Kralveth vessels, sending debris raining down across hundreds of kilometers. Major Isul's last thought before the explosion was of her daughter, safe in a bunker far below the surface. The Kralveth ground forces landed in the Korean peninsula despite the air defense. General Viral commanded 15,000 elite troops, equipped with plasma weapons and personal shields. They expected frightened humans to scatter before them. Instead, they found an ambush. Lieutenant Bora watched through her scope as the alien soldiers formed up in the valley below. Her Special Forces team had spent 3 days preparing this killing ground. Mines buried in the roads, explosives hidden in buildings, snipers positioned on every hillside. "Wait for it," she whispered into her radio. "Let them get comfortable." The Kralveth moved deeper into the valley, their scanners detecting no immediate threats. That was when Bora gave the signal. The valley erupted in fire and thunder. Explosions ripped through the alien formations. Buildings collapsed on top of them. The hills themselves seemed to come alive with gunfire. Bora's rifle barked again and again, each shot finding an alien target. Her team moved like ghosts through the terrain, striking and retreating before the Kralveth could respond. They used weapons the aliens had never seen before. Chemical bombs that created walls of fire. Sonic weapons that shattered their equipment. Biological agents designed to corrode their armor. "They're not fighting like soldiers," one of Viral's officers shouted over the chaos. "They're fighting like hunters." Viral realized the truth too late. These humans were not trying to hold territory. They were trying to kill as many Kralveth as possible, and they were succeeding. His 15,000 troops were being torn apart by a force he couldn't even see. In orbit, Admiral Techmore watched his fleet count drop. 20 ships destroyed, then 30, then 40. The humans were using everything as weapons. Commercial satellites suddenly revealed hidden nuclear charges detonating near his warships. Civilian spacecraft accelerated to ramming speed, their crews sacrificing themselves to damage his vessels. Even the space debris field around Earth seemed to be weaponized, with thousands of small objects targeting his fleet with impossible accuracy. "How are they doing this?" Techmore demanded. "They're primitives. They shouldn't be able to coordinate like this." Colonel Vekthar studied the tactical display with growing dread. "They're not coordinating from a central command, Admiral. Every unit is operating independently. Every ship, every soldier, every civilian is fighting with their own initiative. They don't need orders to know what to do." On Earth's surface, the humans proved Vekthar right. Civilian drones, the kind used for deliveries and photography, suddenly swarmed Kralveth positions, carrying homemade explosives. Farmers used fertilizer and fuel to create massive bombs. Factory workers retooled their machinery to produce ammunition around the clock. Even children helped, running messages between resistance cells when electronic communication was jammed. The Kralveth Empire had conquered 47 species before humanity. None had fought like this. None had turned every aspect of their civilization into a weapon. None had shown such complete disregard for their own safety. Commander Doyun's submarine surfaced near a Kralveth supply convoy. His crew fired their remaining conventional torpedoes before diving deep again. As they escaped, Doyun listened to the alien communications his translators had intercepted. The fear in their voices was obvious, even through the electronic interference. General Quan stood in his command center, watching the global battle unfold. The aliens had superior technology and numbers, but humanity was winning through sheer brutality and determination. Every human loss seemed to make the others fight harder, not weaker. He opened a communication channel to all human forces. They came to our home. They threatened our children. Show them what happens when you wake up a sleeping predator. Across Earth and throughout the inner solar system, millions of humans heard his words and responded. The battle intensified. The Kralveth fleet began to pull back, regrouping in high orbit. They had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they had found a nightmare. Colonel Vekthar sent his emergency message to the Kralveth High Command, his hands shaking as he typed. These beings are insane. They strap explosives to their own vehicles and ram our ships. They poison their own atmosphere to kill our troops. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. We need reinforcements or authorization to withdraw immediately. The response came 6 hours later. Reinforcements denied. You have 300 ships. Complete the mission. Failure is not acceptable. Vekthar closed his eyes and whispered a prayer to gods he had stopped believing in long ago. They had made the Empire's greatest mistake. They had given humans a reason to fight, and now everyone would pay the price. 3 weeks into the war, the Kralveth Empire had lost over 100 ships and thousands of soldiers. Admiral Tekmor no longer laughed at the tactical displays. He sat in his command chair, staring at the reports with hollow eyes. The humans were supposed to surrender. Instead, they had become more aggressive with each passing day. Lieutenant Bora crouched in the ruins of what used to be a Kralveth command post. Her team had taken it 2 hours ago, killing every alien inside. Now her technical specialist worked frantically at the alien computers, downloading everything she could find. Got it, the specialist said, holding up a data chip. Complete fleet communications, tactical deployments, and command codes. Bora smiled grimly. Good. Now we use their own network against them. Let's tell the fleet that Sector 7 needs reinforcements immediately. She knew the aliens would respond, pulling ships from other positions. When they arrived at Sector 7, they would find nothing but a minefield and human attack craft waiting. It was a simple trick, but it would work. The Kralveth still thought in terms of honor and military protocol. Humans had abandoned such concepts 3 weeks ago. In orbit above Earth, Captain Hyun watched as Major Isol's sacrifice played out on his screens. He had known her since the academy. They had shared drinks and stories about their families. Now she was gone, along with her entire squadron. But they had taken down 3 alien ships with them. "Sir, we're detecting a new fleet incoming," his sensor officer reported. "It's massive, at least 500 ships." Hyun felt his stomach drop. They had barely survived against 300. 500 would overwhelm Earth's defenses completely. He opened the channel to Earth Command. "General Quan, we have a problem." On the main Kralveth command ship, Admiral Tekmor felt relief for the first time in weeks. The Empire had sent the Purge Fleet. These were not occupation forces. These were extermination specialists. They had destroyed 12 civilizations that refused to surrender. Now they would burn Earth clean of human life. Colonel Vekthar stood in the briefing room as Warlord Kresh addressed the combined fleet. The warlord was massive, even for a Kralveth, with scars covering his arms and face from 1,000 battles. "I have reviewed the reports from this campaign," Kresh growled. "You have been fighting these humans with restraint, following the rules of civilized warfare. This ends now. We will crack their planet open if necessary. I want every human city targeted. I want their atmosphere poisoned. I want them to understand the price of resistance." Vektar wanted to scream that this was wrong. That escalation would only make things worse. But he stayed silent. No one argued with Warlord Kresh and lived. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, Dr. Minho stared at the test results on his screen. The Prometheus Project had been humanity's last resort weapon, something they hoped never to use. Now it was their only hope. He picked up the phone to General Quan. "The weapon is ready, General, but I need to warn you again. If we use this, there's no going back. We'll be releasing something that could destroy the entire solar system. And if we don't use it," Quan asked quietly, "then the aliens will destroy us anyway. At least this way, we take them with us." Quan was silent for a long moment. "Prepare the weapon, but don't activate it until I give the direct order. We're not dead yet." Commander Doyen's submarine crew had discovered something important. They captured a small Kralveth supply ship and found medical records. The aliens were vulnerable to certain biological agents, specific viruses that could spread through their ventilation systems. Doyun immediately sent the data to military research facilities around the world. Within days, human scientists had weaponized 3 different diseases tailored to Kralveth biology. They loaded the biological weapons onto missiles and launched them at the alien fleet. The warheads detonated in space, releasing clouds of engineered viruses that drifted into the Kralveth ships through their air recycling systems. The effect was devastating. Entire crews fell ill within hours. The ships went dark as the aliens died at their stations. Some Kralveth commanders tried to evacuate, but the virus spread too quickly. They died choking on their own blood, their bodies unable to fight the human-made disease. Warlord Kresh watched as 40 of his ships reported catastrophic casualties. He had never seen biological warfare used so effectively. The humans had studied their enemy for 3 weeks and created the perfect killer. It was both brilliant and terrifying. "They fight without honor," one of his officers said in disgust. Kresh shook his head slowly. "No, they fight to win. There is a difference." In the asteroid belt, Ensign Jiwan prepared for her final mission. She was 23 years old, fresh from the academy, and she had volunteered to pilot the Prometheus weapon into the heart of the Purge fleet. The weapon was a controlled black hole generator, something that could consume matter itself. Her spacecraft was small and fast, designed to avoid detection until the last possible moment. Dr. Minho had personally briefed her on the weapon's function. Once activated, it would create a miniature black hole that would exist for exactly 30 seconds before collapsing. In that time, it would devour everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius. "You understand this is a one-way trip?" Dr. Minho had asked her. Jiwan nodded. "My family is in Busan. If this works, they'll live. That's all that matters." Now she accelerated toward the Purge fleet, her small ship lost among the debris and chaos of the ongoing battle. The Kralveth sensors swept past her multiple times, dismissing her craft as another piece of wreckage. She got closer and closer to the center of their formation. Lieutenant Bora's ground forces had pushed deeper into Kralveth-held territory. They moved through the ruins like shadows, killing aliens and destroying equipment. The enemy had stopped trying to hold territory. They just wanted to survive long enough to evacuate. Bora captured a Kralveth officer and forced him to translate a message. She broadcast it on all alien frequencies, letting every Kralveth soldier hear her words. "You came to conquer us. You came to enslave us. Now you run from us. Tell your empire what happens when you threaten humanity. Tell them we don't forgive and we don't forget. Tell them to never come back." The Kralveth officer's voice shook as he translated her words. When he finished, Bora released him and let him run back to his lines. She wanted him to spread the fear, to tell the others that humans were coming. Ensign Jiwan reached the center of the Purge fleet. Her hands moved across the controls, arming the Prometheus weapon. She thought of her mother and father, her little brother who wanted to be a pilot like her. She thought of the billions of people on Earth who deserved to live in peace. "This is Ensign Jiwan to Earth Command," she said calmly. "Target reached. Weapon armed. Initiating activation sequence. It's been an honor to serve." She pressed the button. The weapon activated. Reality itself seemed to scream as the black hole formed. Jiwan's ship was the first to be consumed, vanished in an instant. Then the Kralveth ships around her began to crumble and compress, pulled into the impossible gravity well. 200 ships died in 30 seconds. When the black hole collapsed, it left nothing but empty space where the heart of the Purge fleet had been. The remaining Kralveth vessels scattered in panic, their formation broken, their will shattered. Admiral Vekthar watched the destruction from a safe distance. He had tried to warn them. He had tried to make them understand. Now he knew the truth that would haunt him forever. Humans were not the prey. They were the predators, and they had been holding back. He opened a channel to all Kralveth forces in the system. His voice was steady despite his fear. "All ships, retreat immediately. Do not attempt to fight. Do not attempt to hold position. Just run." Then he sent the message that would become legend across the galaxy. He spoke in his native language, but the translation computers spread his words to every species that monitored galactic communications. "Destruyan todo antes de que llamen a los humanos. Ellos son más letales." Destroy everything before they call the humans. They are more lethal. The Kralveth retreat turned into a rout. Ships fled through the wormhole gates back to their territory, leaving behind equipment, supplies, and even wounded soldiers. The humans watched them go, but General Quan knew this was not over. The Empire would regroup and return with even more forces unless humanity acted first. "How long to reverse engineer their FTL technology?" Quan asked Dr. Minho. The scientist looked up from his work, exhausted but determined. "We captured 3 intact wormhole generators from destroyed ships. Give me 2 weeks, and I can have them operational. Give me 4 weeks, and I can build new ones." "You have 3 weeks," Quan said. "After that, we're taking the war to them." The news spread through Earth's military forces like wildfire. Humanity was going on the offensive. They had spent 300 years trapped in their own solar system, dreaming of the stars. Now they would reach them on the backs of alien technology, carrying weapons designed to make the galaxy tremble. Admiral Taeyong was given command of the First Fleet, humanity's first extrasolar military force. 50 ships, cobbled together from civilian vessels, military craft, and captured alien technology. They looked like a junkyard fleet compared to the sleek Kralveth warships, but they carried weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. "Our mission is simple," Taeyong addressed his fleet commanders. "We find their colonies. We destroy their military installations. We make them understand that attacking Earth was their greatest mistake. But remember, we are not genocidal monsters. We target their military, not their civilians. We are better than they are." The fleet launched through the captured wormhole gate, emerging in Kralveth space 3 days later. The first target was a military shipyard orbiting a resource-rich moon. The Kralveth garrison detected the human fleet and scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. Taeyong's ships moved with precision born from weeks of desperate combat. They didn't follow alien tactics or formations. They fought like humans using unpredictable maneuvers and asymmetric warfare. One ship would draw fire while 3 others flanked from unexpected angles. They used the moon's gravity to slingshot around obstacles. They even crashed damaged ships into orbital stations when they ran out of ammunition. The shipyard fell in 6 hours. Every Kralveth warship under construction was destroyed. The human fleet jumped away before reinforcements could arrive, leaving behind a message broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Taeyong of the United Earth Forces. You attacked our home without provocation. Now we will dismantle your empire piece by piece until you surrender. We are coming for you. On a Kralveth industrial world, Private Soman landed with the first wave of human marines. She was 19 years old, trained in urban combat and psychological warfare. Her unit's mission was to capture a manufacturing complex that produced plasma weapons for the Empire's military. The Kralveth defenders thought they understood warfare. They had fought other species before, conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced humans in ground combat. Soman's unit moved through the industrial complex like a nightmare made flesh. They used the aliens' own tactics against them, but twisted into something more brutal. They created sounds that mimicked Kralveth distress calls, drawing defenders into ambushes. They poisoned water supplies with chemicals that made the aliens sick, but not dead, forcing them to waste medical resources. They hacked into the complex's announcement systems and broadcast recordings of dying Kralveth soldiers on loop, breaking the defenders' morale. Soman personally led an assault on the command center. Her team breached the doors with shaped charges and stormed inside with weapons firing. The Kralveth commander tried to activate the self-destruct sequence, but Soman shot him before he could complete the command. The facility was captured intact, ready to be retooled to produce weapons for humanity. Colonel Bora, promoted after her success in the Korean Peninsula campaign, now led covert operations behind enemy lines. Her mission was to infiltrate the Kralveth homeworld itself, a task considered impossible by most military analysts. But Bora had studied the aliens carefully. She knew their weaknesses. Her team traveled on a captured supply ship, hiding among crates of medical supplies. They wore Kralveth armor taken from dead soldiers, their faces hidden behind helmets. The enemy guards barely glanced at them as they passed through security checkpoints. The Kralveth had never considered that humans might disguise themselves as aliens. Bora's team reached the capital city and split up to plant surveillance devices throughout the government district. They recorded military communications, identified key leaders, and mapped defensive positions. When they finished, Bora stood in the central plaza of the Kralveth capital and planted a human flag in the ground. She activated her communication device, broadcasting to every frequency. "We are here, in your capital, in your home. Surrender now, or we will bring the war to every corner of your empire." Commander Doyen had trained his submarine crews for void warfare, creating the first human space submarine fleet. They operated in the darkness between stars, hiding in asteroid fields and gas clouds, emerging only to strike at Kralveth supply lines. The aliens called them ghost ships. They appeared without warning, destroyed convoys, and vanished before reinforcements could respond. Doyen's tactics were simple but effective. He targeted supply ships carrying food, medicine, and ammunition. He didn't need to destroy the Kralveth military. He just needed to starve it. One of his captains asked him if this kind of warfare was honorable. Doyen looked at the young officer and shook his head. "They came to enslave us. They threatened our families. Honor is a luxury for peacetime. This is war, and we fight to win." The Kralveth High Command watched their empire crumble. Colonies fell to human attacks. Supply lines collapsed. Their own citizens began to question why they had attacked Earth in the first place. Counselor Jira, a voice of reason in the government, attempted to open peace negotiations. She broadcast a message to humanity, pleading for talks. "We made a mistake attacking your world. We see that now. Please, let us discuss terms of peace. No more death, no more destruction." The response came from General Quan himself. His voice was cold, without mercy. You started this war in our home. You threatened our children. You bombed our cities. Now you want peace because you're losing? No. We will end this war in your territory, on our terms. Surrender unconditionally, or we will continue until your empire no longer exists." Admiral Vekthar had spent weeks trying to understand humans, studying every piece of information the Empire had collected. He watched their history, their wars, their capacity for violence. He finally understood what made them so dangerous. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had perfected warfare against their own kind, the only species in the galaxy cruel and creative enough to truly challenge them. Every human was a warrior by culture, trained from birth in stories of conflict and survival. They turned everything into weapons because they had been doing it to each other since they climbed down from the trees. He made his decision. He would defect. He would offer humanity everything he knew about the Empire in exchange for one thing, the chance to save his people from complete annihilation. He knew it was treason. He knew his name would be cursed by future generations of Kralveth. But he also knew it was the only way to end this war before humans decided to finish what the Empire had started. Vekthar sent a tight beam transmission to the nearest human fleet, offering to meet under a flag of truce. The reply came within hours. General Quan himself would meet with him, but the meeting would happen on Earth, in the ruins of Sol, where Kralveth bombs had killed thousands of civilians. As Vekthar's ship traveled toward Earth, he looked back at the Kralveth Empire he was betraying. He whispered his apology to his people and prayed that history would remember him as the one who saved them, not the one who betrayed them. Admiral Vekthar stood in the ruins of Sol, surrounded by human soldiers who kept their weapons pointed at him. The city had been beautiful once, filled with millions of people living their lives in peace. Now it was broken concrete and twisted metal, a memorial to the thousands who died when Kralveth bombs fell from the sky. General Quan walked through the rubble to meet him. The human general was smaller than Vekthar, but the alien admiral felt like a child standing before him. There was something in Quan's eyes that spoke of witnessed horrors and difficult decisions made without hesitation. "You wanted to talk," Quan said simply. "Talk." Vekthar bowed his head, a gesture of submission that no Kralveth admiral had ever made before. "I come to offer the complete surrender of the Kralveth Empire. I have the authority from our high command to negotiate terms." "Terms?" Quan's voice was flat. "You don't get terms. You get to surrender unconditionally, or we will continue this war until there are no Kralveth left to fight." "Then I offer unconditional surrender," Vekthar said quietly. "But I beg you, please show mercy to the civilians of our empire. They did not choose this war. Our leaders did." Quan studied the alien for a long moment. "Your people bombed our cities, killed our children, came to enslave us. Why should we show mercy?" "Because you are better than us," Vekthar answered. "I have studied your history, General. Yes, humans are capable of terrible violence, but you are also capable of great compassion. You rebuild what you destroy. You forgive your enemies. You are more than just warriors. That is why you will win. That is why we have already lost." General Quan looked around at the ruins of Sol, thinking of all the people who died here. He thought of Major Isol, who sacrificed herself to protect Earth. He thought of Ensign Jiwon, who flew into the heart of an enemy fleet knowing she would never return. He thought of all the humans who fought and died to protect their home. Then he thought about what kind of galaxy he wanted to leave for his grandchildren. One built on revenge and hatred, or one where even enemies could find peace. "These are our terms," Quan said. "The Kralveth Empire will be dismantled. All conquered worlds will be freed immediately. Your military will be reduced to a defense force only. Humanity will occupy your territory for 50 years to ensure compliance. You will provide all your technology and resources to help rebuild Earth. You will pay reparations to every family that lost someone in this war. And you will teach your children what happens when you start wars you cannot finish. Vector felt relief wash over him. It was harsh, but it was not genocide. His people would survive. I accept all terms on behalf of the Kralveth Empire. Admiral Taeyong returned to the Sol system 3 months after the surrender. His fleet had fought in 20 battles across Kralveth space. They had lost ships and crew, but they had achieved every objective. Now he stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. He should have felt proud. He should have felt like a hero. Instead, he felt empty. He had seen what humans were capable of when they stopped holding back. He had ordered attacks that killed thousands. He had made decisions that haunted his dreams. Victory tasted like ash in his mouth. His second officer, a young woman named Hyejin, stood beside him. "Sir, the planet is organizing a parade in our honor. They want to celebrate the victory." Taeyong shook his head slowly. "There's nothing to celebrate. We won because we were willing to be more brutal than our enemies. That's not heroism. That's survival. But we protected Earth, sir. We saved billions of lives." "At what cost?" Taeyong looked at his reflection in the window. "I'm not sure I recognize the person I've become." Private Soman returned home to find her house still standing, though her neighborhood was half destroyed. Her mother cried when she saw her, holding her tight and refusing to let go. Her little sister asked her what it was like to fight aliens. Soman smiled and lied, telling her it was exciting and brave. She didn't mention the nightmares. She didn't mention the Kralveth soldier who begged for mercy before she pulled the trigger. She didn't mention how easy killing had become. Colonel Bora oversaw the peacekeeping forces on the Kralveth homeworld. Her job was to maintain order and ensure the aliens followed the surrender terms. She worked 18-hour days, negotiating disputes and preventing revenge attacks from both sides. One day, a young Kralveth child approached her on the street. The child looked up at her with wide eyes and asked in broken English, "Are you going to kill us?" Bora knelt down to the child's level. "No, we're here to make sure the fighting stops. We're here to help build peace." "My father says humans are monsters." "Your father is scared," Bora said gently. "We were scared too when your ships came to Earth. But being scared doesn't mean we have to be enemies forever." Commander Doyen retired from military service. He moved to a quiet fishing village and tried to forget the war. But some nights he would wake up screaming, remembering the biological weapons he had helped deploy. Those weapons had killed thousands of Kralveth soldiers, and Doyen knew many of them were just following orders, just like him. Dr. Minho was celebrated as humanity's greatest scientist. They gave him medals and awards. They named buildings after him. But he looked at the Prometheus weapons he had created and wondered if he had damned humanity's soul. His inventions had saved Earth, but they had also proven that humans could build weapons to destroy reality itself. Across the galaxy, other civilizations received Admiral Vector's warning. They studied the war between humans and the Kralveth Empire. They analyzed every battle, every tactic, every weapon humans had used. What they learned terrified them. Humans fought with nuclear weapons, biological warfare, and antimatter bombs. They used psychological terror and guerrilla tactics. They turned civilian technology into weapons. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. Most disturbing of all, they did all of this to each other throughout their history. The war with the Kralveth was not humans at their worst. It was humans holding back because they were fighting a different species. 23 civilizations formed the Non-Aggression Coalition, pledging never to attack Earth or any human colony. Their founding document contained one simple rule: never give humans a reason to leave their star system with hostile intent. 50 years after the war, humanity stood at a crossroads. The occupation of Kralveth territory was ending. The empire had been reformed into a peaceful federation. Earth was rebuilt, stronger than before. Human colonies spread across a dozen star systems. General Quan, now old and gray, addressed the United Earth Council for the last time before his retirement. We proved we are the deadliest species in known space. We proved we can win any war. But the question is not whether we can fight. The question is whether we should. I hope future generations choose peace over violence. I hope they build instead of destroy. I hope they are wiser than we were. A new alien species made first contact with humanity. The Tilan were a peaceful people, focused on trade and exploration. Their diplomat approached Earth with extreme caution, broadcasting messages of friendship for weeks before requesting a meeting. Admiral Taeyong, now in charge of Earth's diplomatic corps, welcomed them. The Tilan diplomat was visibly nervous, her hands shaking as she presented her credentials. "Why do you look so frightened?" Taeyong asked gently. The diplomat took a deep breath. "Because we have studied your history, Admiral. We know what you did to the Kralveth Empire. We know what you are capable of. We have learned the most important lesson in galactic history. And what lesson is that? Never give humans a reason to show you why Earth has no natural predators anymore. You killed them all yourselves. Then you killed anyone who tried to become one." Taeyong smiled sadly. It was true. Humanity had hunted every dangerous animal on Earth to extinction or near extinction. They had conquered their own world completely. Then they had done the same to anyone who threatened them. "Then we understand each other perfectly," Taeyong said. "Welcome to Seoul. Let's discuss trade and friendship. The galaxy needs more friends and fewer enemies." The Tilan diplomat relaxed slightly, hopeful that this new chapter in galactic history would be different. But she never forgot the warning, and neither did any other species that encountered humans. They all remembered Admiral Vekthar's words. Admiral Vekthar himself lived in exile on Mars, writing his history of the war. He had become something of a celebrity among humans. The alien who tried to save his people by surrendering. Young human students often visited him, asking questions about the war and the galaxy beyond. One student asked him, "Do you hate us for what we did to your people?" Vekthar considered the question carefully. "No. I hate the leaders who started the war. You defended your home. You did what any species would do. The difference is that you were better at it than we expected. My people learned a valuable lesson. Some prey animals are only prey because they choose to be." He finished his book and titled it simply, "We Woke the Wolves." The final line would be quoted across the galaxy for generations to come. "We thought we were lions hunting sheep. We were sheep who woke the wolves. And wolves do not forgive. They do not forget. They hunt." Humanity had won its place in the galaxy not through diplomacy or trade, but through overwhelming violence. Now they had to prove they could be more than just warriors. The next 50 years would determine if humans would be remembered as monsters or as the species that chose peace after learning the true cost of war. The galaxy watched and waited, hoping the wolves would stay asleep.